Equity traders seem to have decided that a war in the Middle East, one that has effectively closed the world's most critical energy choke point, is simply a great opportunity to buy the dip. And buying the dip has become such a winning strategy in recent years that dips don't really happen much anymore. The average consumer is a bit less convinced. US consumer sentiment has recently fallen to a 74-year low. To put that in perspective, those 74 years included the assassination of JFK, the 1973 oil embargo, September 11th, the global financial crisis, and a global pandemic. And people are more miserable now than they were during any of those times. That is not a great number if you're an incumbent politician running for office. Politicians would very much like to blame our current cost of living problems entirely on this geopolitical bad luck. And while the energy shock has certainly acted as a massive accelerant, several highly credible economists had been warning that a surge in inflation was sitting in the pipeline long before the first missile was fired. The war merely exposed the problem. According to a new book by Manoj Pradhan and Charles Goodhart, for 3 decades central bankers have been taking credit for a structural decline in global prices that had almost nothing to do with their policy decisions. They had the wind at their backs and mistook it for the power of their own legs. Central bankers looked at this massive structural gift of cheap labor and cheap goods and concluded that their success was down to their own financial genius. But that era is now coming to an end. The structural tailwind that made central banking look easy for 30 years hasn't just faded, it's being erased by demographics, by geopolitics, and by deliberate policy. For 3 decades, central bankers had the wind at their backs. Cheap labor, cheap goods, open trade routes, and falling prices made the job look easy. Now the demographics have reversed. The trade routes are contested, the deficits are structural, and the politicians are telling the central bank what to do. The wind hasn't just changed direction, it's blowing directly into their faces. Pradhan and Goodhart call this the age of the unanchored central banker, an era in which the central bank can no longer single-mindedly pursue low and stable inflation, not because central bankers have become less competent, but because the structural conditions that allowed them to succeed have been removed.